February 23rd, and it's time for another episode of Designing with Deb here at artbeads.com/live. Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, but I hope it's a good Monday. It's starting off right. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I see Michelle and Thaisa are both here today. Thank you, ladies, for being here. You can hang out with Thaisa, Michelle, and I today, and we're going to have some fun. So it is February 23rd. I know there is terrible weather in the east. I hope everybody is safe and warm. Maybe it's an excuse for you to stay in today and maybe do a little extra jewelry making. I don't know. I think that way. Good morning, everybody. So if you hadn't noticed, the Art Beads President's Day sale was extended, and so through the end of today, you can still get up to 50% off store-wide and double rewards points. So if you all haven't taken a look at that sale, go to artbeads.com. There's a banner that will flash across the screen. If you click on that, you can get a really concentrated view of the sale. I love how Art Beads does that. So you can go and find the deals. It's super cool. And those double rewards points, super great, because you can essentially use that to get more beads and more things in the future. So don't forget to check that out. That sale is on through the end of today, which is February 23rd of 2026. So welcome, everybody. I see lots of folks joining in this morning. Let me go back and scroll, see who's here. Good morning, Monica from Rhode Island. Vicky is here from Maryland. Hello, Laura Rang from Texas. Kim Caldwell. Texas Tracy is here. Jan T is here. Thank you so much. You guys, this is like the last, I shouldn't even say this based on what I just said about the East Coast, but this is like the last really cold day for us, probably for a while. So I'm wearing my little poncho that I got this year, and I probably won't be able to wear it for a year. Monica says she's having a blizzard. Yeah, I'm sorry you've got over 2 feet. I hope you're safe and warm and cuddled up with tea and maybe a furry animal of some sort, like a cat or a dog. Michelle is saying hello to Laura. Laura Rang is saying hi to Texas Tracy. Jane says burr. Yeah, you guys, I'm seeing the news. I'm seeing the photos. I'm representing for you today in the fuzzy wrap here. Gina from NorCal is here. She's saying hi to all the fab art beaters. Vicky says, yes, it snowed again and had just melted 2 days ago. Now it's back. I'm sorry, Vicky. Ugh. It's just that time of year, you know. Becky P is here from Tennessee. Hazel from Massachusetts. Jane is saying hello to everyone. Hannah is here from rainy Iceland. So she's got rain in Iceland. That's not too terrible. Mary from Oklahoma. Lou is here. Thank you so much. BJ is here. Chris is here. Susie in South Florida says it's sunny but windy and a little chilly, it sounds like. Kat says good morning. Thank you, Laura Rang. Linda in Boston says it's snowy there. Oh, you guys. Monica from Rhode Island. Oh, yes. Let's see who else. Scrolling. Rosetta, hello. Bad weather in New York City since yesterday. I've seen some video and photos of New York City. Oh, gosh. Kathleen M. Yeah, I hope everybody is safe and warm. I mean, if you can't get out, I hope you've got, milk and bread and all of those things. I know everybody goes crazy before it's storm. Judy in Michigan, hello. Linda says, blowing and drifting snow everywhere. You guys, I'm sorry. Kara's asking for snow in Colorado. Send some snow to Kara, you guys. Just go outside, do this a little bit. Maybe Kara will get some snow her way. Debbie M says it's chilly in Florida. Julie Newton says, Southern California is beautiful. Well, I'm glad to hear that. A few folks are enjoying some nice weather. Overcast in Seattle per Susan J. You guys, yeah, so I hope all of you on the East Coast that are dealing with this blizzard weather are doing okay. And maybe we can just have some fun this morning, take your mind off of that, and just do a little bit of jewelry making today. So as a reminder, if you're watching at artbeads.com/live, that's the best place to watch the show live because we can all chat. You can chat with each other. You can share your woes over the weather. And you can barter with the weather. Maybe somebody wants a little bit more snow. Someone wants a little sun. You guys can do some bartering in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, unfortunately, we can't see your comments live. But one of the other advantages of watching the show at artbeads.com is that you can also shop the show. So today I've got some great things in the show. We're going to do a little workshop today. So a couple of you, or more than a couple of you, have asked for some technique and guidance on crimping and finishing. So we're going to focus on finishing bracelets and necklaces today. We're not going to actually make a full necklace or a full bracelet, but I'm going to talk to you about techniques, show you some techniques, show you what I like to do, and the tools and things that you need to do that. So the shopping bag on your screen, if you're watching at artbeads.com, has all of the goodies that I have in the show today. So some beads, but also tools, crimps, crimp covers, wire, those kinds of things, so that if you all are looking to stock up on those kinds of things, maybe you're inspired by today's show, maybe you want to try more stringing designs or crimping. You guys, there's all kinds of goodies for you in that shopping bag, and you can shop while you watch. So don't hesitate to click on that shopping bag while you watch, because I don't go away. Joe doesn't go away. We're still here. You can see us and hear us while you shop, so you can take things, put them into your shopping cart. So good morning to those who have joined. I'm going to flip the camera down and let's get us started. So we are doing a finishing workshop today. This is my fun vintage little chalkboard. I love playing around with this, but we're going to do a finishing workshop today and just talk about some techniques for finishing mostly bracelets and necklaces. So this could also apply to other techniques where you're using stringing wire or some chain, that kind of thing. So I thought that we would start with crimping because that was a special request for a show. So trying to give you some crimping guidance. So first of all, I wanted to put this in the show today. This is on sale right now, and this is the Beadle-On Glimmer Series Pliers Kit. And this is cool because it is a full set of Beadle-On pliers, and they have the glimmer handles on them. So I don't know if the camera is going to pick that up very well, but they have these glimmery handles that are great. They just add a little bit of pizzazz to your life, and they come on this velvety tray, which is picked up all kinds of lint, probably some cat hair, but you get 4 items. You get a cutter, and you get 3 sizes of crimping pliers. Now you'll get the traditional size crimping pliers. So you'll see right on the plier, it is a standard. So this is what you would use probably 90% of the time, but they also have a mighty plier, a mighty grand crimping plier for your larger crimp tubes, for a heavier crimp tube, and then the micro, which has the tiniest of little crimping notches there for the tiny crimps. And you probably don't need these very often, but when you need them, you need them. So it's nice to have these stashed away for when you've got that project that calls for a smaller or a larger crimp, and you've got them. So you won't be sitting around waiting to finish up a piece, but this is a great deal on sale right now. So I thought I would show you those. So if you're looking for a new crimping plier, or for some extra tools to have around, that's available to you. Now, I want to also tell you that one of the things about crimping is quality products, quality tools, and quality crimps. Probably the thing I see most often in all of the jewelry making groups, which I follow along quite often. Let's see. Vicky says, would you need them if you have a Xuron 3-size crimper? No. If you've got a Xuron 3-size crimper, which I think, Vicky, you're referring to this guy, you would not necessarily, the large one, you might. So I've not tried the Xuron crimper with a large crimping crimp. So maybe you might, but this is pretty universal for a lot of your different sizes. I find the Xuron crimping plier a little bit challenging. I'm just being honest, only because I learned on these and I just gravitate to these. So I'm not versed. I haven't really fully tested these, but this is a great tool. Xuron makes an excellent tool. So I have every confidence that that will probably do the job for most everything that you're doing. So this is something I hear a lot in jewelry making, Facebook groups and other things is, my crimps are coming apart. I can't, get my crimps to stay on. And you guys, it's all about using the right tools, using the right combinations of things, and using quality. Kat, I know a lot of people love that tool. It's absolutely a great tool. I'm just not good at using it is the bottom line for me. So you guys, I'm endorsing today making sure that you're using quality wire, quality crimps, and that you're using a good quality tool and you're doing it right. Because if you have the technique down and you're using the right pieces and parts, you should not have any issues with crimping. Now, every now and again, a crimp is going to fail. Every now and again, maybe your technique might be a little bit off. It's happened to me even in the recent past. So, but 90% of the time, 95% of the time, 98% of the time, if you're using good quality items, and you're doing the technique correctly, you should not have a problem with crimping. So, this is what I'm suggesting you do to start with. So, I like the beading wire from Beadalon for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons I really like their beading wire is they're going to give you all of the facts. So here is a 49 strand beading wire. This is the bright, and I've got my wire all kind of jumbled up on my spool here, but this is the bright. And it is a 49 strand wire, which means it's got 49 tiny little strands of wire coiled up and put together to make a nice, strong beading wire. This is the heaviest that they make, and it's got an amazing, excellent drape. I like this for large beads and for necklace designs. This is a great wire. You can get this in different colors and, excuse me, and you will find out from the product packaging that when you go to pick out your crimps to go with this, it calls for a number 2 crimp and a number 2 crimp bead. Now, I am a crimp tube fan. I am not a big fan of crimp beads, but I know some folks swear by them, love them, have an adoration for them. This is all about, jewelry making is all about personal preference. So I'm not saying crimp beads don't work. I'm just saying I prefer crimp tubes. So I know from this packaging that a size 2 crimp is what I need. Now, Beadalon also makes a 19 strand. You guys probably see me use this most often. This is a middle of the road 19 strands of wire versus 49. It still has a nice drape, and this one also calls for a number 2 crimp tube, but calls for a number 1 crimp bead. This is the bronze color. And this is really lovely for working with antique brass, antique copper, gold. So this is just a really nice wire color. Leah is saying, my problem with crimping is when I hold and separate the wire, the bottom of the crimp, my loop with jump ring twists. Well, we'll talk about the crimping technique. I'll show you at least what I do. Here is a 7 strand. This is a little bit more on the affordable side. If you, this still has a great drape. It's still a great quality. It is 7 strands of wire. It's got a little less drape, a little less flexibility, but it's also really good quality. This is the bright, and this will tell you number 2 crimp tube, number 1 crimp bead. So if you're working with these products, check your packaging. It should tell you what crimps to use. And I love Beadalon crimp tubes. I find these to be some of the best quality crimp tubes that there are. And if you are a stringing, if you like to do jewelry stringing, you like to do stringing projects, I love this multi-pack of crimp tubes. This is 4 different crimp tubes in number 2 size, meaning 4 different colors, I guess. So you get a silver plated, you get a gold color, you get a copper plated, and you get a hematite. So this would be for your gunmetal type designs. You've got some antique copper that looks great with different shades of copper and even with antique brass. You've got a nice bright gold and the standard silver. I love this pack. I buy these quite frequently. This is most commonly what I will use for a crimp, and I have them stashed in the little bottles. These are terrific. There's a little glass package that they come in. So the back of the package is going to give you the information on each of the crimps and which one of the crimp pliers you would need for the different sizes. So these are all size 2, but if you had different sizes, this is also a great reference. So if you wanted to, you could take these out of the package and you could save this little card for yourself as a reference. So that is the recommendation I give you for crimp tubes, but there are other multi-packs. I believe I also put the Beadsmith multi-pack in the show today as well. Those are also great crimps. So that's an option for you. I see them on the screen. I also have some Beadsmith Flex-Rite, which is a 49 strand beading wire, much like this one. And again, it's personal preference. I pulled this in a gold so you could see that beautiful gold color. Rosetta, crimping does not hate you. I can assure you it does not. So we're gonna muscle through some crimping today. I'm going to show you how I do it, how I think about it, how I make it happen. I consider myself a master stringer. I do a lot of stringing designs. And so a lot of what I do involves crimping. I have probably crimped thousands and thousands of pieces of jewelry. Do I get it right every time? No. Do I sometimes get a crimp that doesn't cooperate? Yes. So even with my experience, I still occasionally struggle, and it's just, it's just sometimes happens. So let's take a look. I put together just a quick strand of beads with some seed beads in between. If you're curious about these beads, they are in the show. They're a check fire polish. They are an 8mm light amethyst round, and they're gorgeous. So I thought to do this, we should have some pretty beads to look at, right? So I'm going to be starting with showing you just the basics, and then we're going to move to more of the finishing conversation. So I also, Michelle and Thaisa, I don't know if I put bead stoppers in the show today, but this is also something that you will need as a stringer, whether you're making necklaces or bracelets. This is a great way to help you out with your designs. Can you over crimp? I think, Cindy, you're asking maybe, can you crimp too hard or something like that? Yes, you can. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. So, when I am working on a design, typically I work from the package. There are times where I'll actually cut a piece of wire, but I always suggest that you work from your package because you probably won't waste wire, and you probably you'll have an opportunity to give yourself more wire up top, or more wire to finish something if you were a little short if you cut it. Deb, what does the 0.015 mean on the beading wire? Is it the circumference of the wire? Yes. So, let's see, this is the 7, and it's a 0.015. So it is the circumference, and you can see this is it's a tiny little circumference, but you do need to be cautious because these wires also come in different circumferences. So if that is the case, sometimes you might end up with a thicker wire that may be a little bit more challenging to get through beads that have smaller holes. But it's also nice to have some of the different circumferences because they can sometimes work for a heavier bead or a bigger bead or a bead with a larger hole, that kind of thing. So that's an excellent question. So let's do the very basics. So I'm going to open up my little tube of size 2 crimp tubes. And the size 2, again, is probably the most universal. So you will probably use a size 2 crimp tube, I would say probably 90 to 95% of the time. It's that other 5 to 10% that you've got to have maybe some other sizes stashed away and have some of your other crimping pliers stashed away. But this is pretty universal. So if you're just getting started, a size 2 crimp tube is great. Now I've got a 19 strand beading wire on here, and I'm working with this just little strand of beads for our sample. Good morning, Ruth Alice. So this is the bright 19 strand. I have the bronze 19 strand out, but this is the 19 strand bright. And to finish a piece, let's say we're going to just put on a simple lobster claw. So I'm going to grab a lobster claw, and we just want to secure our lobster claw. Now, I use other finishing techniques. We're going to talk about those too, but we're just going to work with the wire. We're not going to add anything to it. We're not going to really do anything with it. We're just going to create a loop and attach our lobster claw. So what you're going to want to do is put your crimp tube on to your piece, and then what you're going to want to do is take your lobster claw and put it onto the wire. Now, most of the time what I would suggest is to make sure that your piece, that you don't crimp in a straight line, but because I've still got an open end, I'm not going to worry about crimping in a straight line. Plus, I want to be able to show you guys this up close. So here's what I do. Thank you for the hearts, you guys. So here's what I do, and I'll try to give you the best view of this that I can. So I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to go down through the crimp tube. And this is hard to see for me on camera. So I'm going to go through my crimp tube. Now I'm going to show you something here that makes a difference. So you can crimp here and cut your wire off here. But the challenge is if you cut here is you'll have a little bit of tiny bit of wire that will stick out from your crimp tube. Now, going down a bead is what I suggest for aesthetic purposes. It doesn't help you to make it any stronger or anything. It doesn't make it any more resistant to problems, but it's much easier to cut in a different place, and it's going to make sure that your crimp is nice and flush with that bead. So I always recommend, if at all possible, take your wire and go down a bead. Now, what's great about using like a spacer or seed beads is you're going to come out next to your beads, and that's going to give you a place for that little extra piece of wire to kind of settle, and it won't obstruct the piece and the structure. So you'll get a nice flush crimp to your bead. Now, I'm going to push this wire a little bit down, and then I'm going to pull the wire with my hand. So I am a lefty. I'm sorry, guys, for you righties, but you would do this in the opposite hands. And I'm going to pull the wire down. Now, something that folks often ask about is, do I need to pull this tight? I do not recommend that you pull this loop tight because it's going to choke this clasp and it's not going to give it movement. So you want a loop here, but you want it to, you got to find the right sweet spot. You don't want it to be too big, but you also want this clasp to have movement, because then it's going to be on the wrist and it's going to be, you're going to be able to move it around. It's going to have some flexibility to it. So I'm going to pull that just a touch tighter, and it's still got some flexibility. So take a look at that. This is a kind of a medium-sized lobster, and I want to just for you to be able to see it. So that's my my spacing for the lobster. Now, crimping pliers. There are 2 notches on your crimping pliers, and this is the best way to see them. So you'll see on the left of your screen is the back notch of the crimping plier. On the right side of the screen is the front notch. So you've got a notch here and a notch here. Those are the 2 notches that you'll need to use to complete the crimp. So you'll see that when that crimping plier comes together, it's going to create a shape. Now, the objective of a crimp is to take your 2 pieces of wire, and you want one piece of wire to be in one channel of the crimp and the other piece of wire in the other channel. So when you do the first step, it's going to press a seam between the 2 pieces of wire. You want your 2 pieces of wire to be separate. You do not want them to be crossed, because that is not going to allow the crimp to do what it's supposed to do. So the first step is to get those 2 pieces of wire secured in 1/2 of your crimp tube. So that little back notch is going to do that to start with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crimp. Actually, I'm going to secure it this way. So I'm going to take my crimping pliers and I'm going to drop that crimp into that back notch. So I'm going to hold it there without squeezing. I'm just squeezing very lightly just so that you can see where it is. So I'm holding it so that it is flat down and the wires should be separated. Now, to give me some extra confidence in that, I'm holding my piece of wire kind of away from the strand. So I'm kind of sort of separating them by doing that. So I've got that all together, and then I'm going to just take my pliers and crimp. And let me see how that looks. So what it's done is it's taken my two wires, so that it's created that loop, and it's put one wire in one channel and one wire in the other channel. So I'm going to then finish the crimp. So this is not finished. What you want to do is then do the second step that will take those two pieces and squish them together so they make like a little sandwich almost. So they'll come together, and that will make sure that your wires are then secure on the wire. Or the crimp is secure on the wire and your piece is secure. So I will take my piece and I'll twist it to the side. You don't have to do that, but I think it's a little bit easier. And what you want to do is take your crimp and put it into that front notch. So the front notch, the one on the right, is what we want to do second. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to drop that in. And this is, by this time, your wires, you know your wires are not crossed. You know that your wires are in the right spot. So all you need to worry about is getting that crimp secure. So you're going to squeeze. And you know what I did? So I made a mistake. So this will actually show you my loop got too tight. So while I was playing with this, I wasn't paying attention and my loop got small. So look what that does. So my crimp looks good, but now my clasp is not in the right place. Like there's not enough room for it. But that crimp looks good. So it is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It went from separating those wires and then we squished it together so the two pieces of metal come together. Let's see, does how hard you press matter? So you want to give it a firm, a firm press, but not use all of your muscle and might, Susan. So don't use your brute force. Just give it a nice solid squeeze. So I'm going to do another one, but first I'm going to show you what I do to finish it off. So I have my other end open here, but it's open with a bead stopper. So I've got my first piece, and again, this is not right, but I'm glad that actually worked out so you can see what happens if you don't give your loop enough space. So I like to take my wire and pull it away from my bead. So if you see this, I've got my excess wire that I went down through that first bead. I pull it away, and then I'm going to come in with some flush cut pliers, and I'm going to trim right up next to that bead. And now that crimp is in the right spot. So it's nice and flush against my bead. That looks nice and finished. And that little excess wire isn't causing a problem because it's ending in a place where there are smaller beads next to the big bead, and it's not going to crowd the beads. That little excess piece of wire can be a real bugger. So Susan says, I had 2 bracelets I made slip out of crimps. That could be because of the quality of the crimp, could be the technique of the crimp. It could be that the wire and the crimp were a mismatch. So let's do the other side. I'm going to show you just one more time what that crimp process looks like. So I've got my size 2 crimps. And again, the size of the crimp matters with the type of wire. So I think it's always important, guys, to keep your packaging keep a reference, maybe write it down or put it, put a note in your phone if it helps you to remember that, a 49 strand wire with a 0.015 is going to work with a size 2 crimp tube. You could take some photos of the packaging, but it's always helpful to, to understand that the right match is going to help you. So here we go. We've got our size 2 crimp tube on our 19 strand beading wire. And I think what I'll do here is I'm going to show you, I'm going to put on another one of our lobsters. So hopefully this time I can get the loop right. So we're just going to put on our lobster claw. And she says, I pressed really hard. Yeah. I mean, that if you press too hard, that is definitely a potential failure. Another thing is a lot of folks will talk about flat crimping. I will tell you, flat crimping has its place, but I do not recommend it for your run-of-the-mill standard, making a bracelet, making a necklace, because that is not going to give you the security of doing a full crimp. You saw how the wires came together here, and then we squished them this way. So you're getting that double protection of getting that closure, getting that security. If you just flat crimp, you have the potential for that wire to shimmy out. You don't get it secured in the right way. And if you flat crimp it too hard, you can also damage the crimp. But there are sometimes projects where you have no other option but to get in and do a flat crimp. So thank you, Susie. So here's our crimp here. It's right up against our bead. And then I'm going to take my wire. I'm going to put that through my crimp tube, and I'm going to put it down through that first bead. Again, not to create additional security, but for aesthetic reasons. So I'm going to try, since I'm already crimped on this side, I'm going to try not to crimp in a straight line. So I'm pulling the wire with one hand, and I want to get it to a place where the loop is a good size, so it's not going to choke down like this one. So look how that is. That's not good. If you pull that wire down too hard, your clasp is just not going to be in the right place. Yes, you can get tubes by the pack. And I believe we also have them in the shopping bag individually as well. If not, maybe Michelle and Thaisa can make sure those are in. So I'm going to pull my loop down just a little bit more. And look, I've got a nice movement for my, my lobster claw. So what I'm going to do now is crimp. And I'm going to come in and take my crimping pliers. I'm going to drop that crimp right into that back notch. See, it's just sitting there. I'm holding it with a little bit of pressure, but I'm not squeezing. So just make sure that your piece is in there and then give it a squeeze. And you can see it moved when I did that. So I'm holding off my wire off to the side. You could hold it off to the other side, but now it has put a piece of wire into each one of the channels. You don't want that wire to be crossed. So you have an opportunity before you actually do that first step to make sure that your wire's not crossed, make sure that you've got a good loop. You can always stop there, reorient everything, and start again. Just take your time, guys. If this is what you struggle with, take your time. Now, I turn my piece to the side, so you see the little curve of those channels is facing me, but I'm going to turn it to the side, and I'm going to come in with and put it into that first notch on the pliers. And I'm going to give that a squeeze. Not squeezing hard, just giving it a nice firm squeeze. And now, you guys, we've got a nice little loop there We've got a nice crimp and it's flush with my bead. So I'm not going to be cutting up here. I'm going to be cutting down here where I've got a little bit more space for this, this little tiny trimming off of the wire that might pop out. So what I do then is I will pull this over, and you know, your piece is crimped. Now I've got both sides crimped. So I've got just a tiny bit of play because I didn't crimp in a straight line. You don't want your piece to be so tight that it makes your piece too rigid. You want a nice fluid bracelet or a fluid necklace. You can take most of the gapping out, but you want that to just be a nice fluid piece. Thanks, Francie. So I'm going to pull my wire away. So I'm going to take my piece, kind of bend it over. I can see the hole here. I'm going to come in with my flush cutters and I'm going to trim that wire right against that bead. And now I've got a really nice crimped end of my piece of jewelry. So guys, it's practice, practice. I'll do one more for you just so we can get one more look. Maybe I'll do a different color wire. Let's see. I've got to open this guy. I haven't used beadsmith wire for a while, so it comes off differently. So when I pull wire from a package, I always trim off the end because it's it can be a little bunched up or a little, a little jumbled up at the end. So I'm going to use this. Let's grab these pretty beads. These are a gorgeous gemstone. You guys, I'm hearing Tiger's Eye is back. It is a popular gemstone right now in the trending analysis for the year. These are gorgeous faceted Tiger Eye rounds. They're 10 millimeter. They are gorgeous. Now for a 10 millimeter bead, I like 49 strand wire. It's just my preference. You could get away with 19 strand. Just make sure that your crimps are good and, that you're doing all the right things to make sure that your piece is not going to come apart. So here is our gold wire, and I'm just going to take some beads here, and I'm always going to add some seed beads. So these are kind of this is a bizarre combination, but I'm going to do this anyway because I want you guys to be able to see a little bit of what I'm doing. These are a pretty blue transparent rainbow frosted teal. So I'm just going to use these with this. They don't match nicely, but I don't know. They're kind of cool together maybe. So let's take a few beads, string these on. Oh, that actually doesn't look bad. Sometimes you don't know until you really put them together. So let's put a few beads on here. And that's what we look like. Big, beautiful Tiger's Eye. Love those. Texas Tracy, I've always liked them too. I think they've just kind of been a little they've fallen out of style a little bit. So we can still use things even when they're out of style. If we like them, we like them. All right, so I've got this little section here, and let's do one more edition of a lobster. Now I don't have another lobster handy, so let me grab one. Ooh, yep, I just dropped some stuff on the floor. So let me grab a clasp. Let me grab a pretty little, I think this one is a good one. So I'm going to grab a small one here. Shut this cabinet behind me. All right, so this is another 49 strand wire and another size 2 crimp tube. So I'm going to just use a silver one here. We're not making anything. We're just showing off a technique. Now I'm working from the package again. So remember I said you should try and work from the package if you can. This is how I normally like to work, but sometimes you do need to cut your wire. So I'm going to put a stopper here just for the sake of showing this. So here I've got my crimp tube sitting up against that 10 millimeter bead. And then I'm going to add my lobster. And so I'm going to take this guy, put that onto my wire. I'm going to show you one more time how I do this. And it's just about, you got to get the lobster out of the way. So he wants to follow you, but for starters, I like to make sure that my wire goes through the crimp tube and then goes down into that bead. And then I'm going to pull on my wire and I'm going to hold it. So I'm holding on to that wire and I want to make sure that my loop is big enough. So I'm going to put this off, hold this off to the side, and then I'm going to come in and drop that crimp tube into the back notch and give that a squeeze. And what that does is take the wire and separate it. So that's a first step of a crimp. Then, and I'm checking, double checking, I've got movement for my lobster. And then, ooh, sorry guys, hit the camera. And then I'm going to turn it to the side, put that crimp into the first notch and give it a squeeze. And now I've got a nice crimp right up against my bead. This one is not the perfect loop, but it's good and it's giving me some flexibility on my lobster. So I'm going to take my excess wire, pull it away, and trim that off. And then I've got a nice crimp with a nice pretty lobster claw on the end. Our lobster claw is preferred over spring ring clasp. Kat, that is an absolute personal preference thing. So I think generally you'll see lobster claws used more commonly out there in the jewelry world, but spring clasps are still very much a thing and very much something that you can use. So if you prefer those, use those. It's a total personal preference thing. And you can switch it up. Do some lobsters, some spring rings. And if you sell your jewelry, you can offer those options. So there we go. So that is crimping. And you guys, I just suggest don't get frustrated. Crimping does not hate you. And just practice. Clasps there are so many options for clasps. So you give it a try. Pick what you like, do what you like. Here's a cool feature of the beadsmith wire. It has this little notch in the back where you can secure it. So that's a fun thing. The bead-along wires will come with these little plastic plastic holders. I save these. So when I'm done with one of my spools, I save these because sometimes these can break if you get a little crazy. And you can also use them for displaying a bracelet. So you can put your bracelet on them and take a photo that way. So that is the basic on crimping. Now I thought we could shift our focus. Gosh, the time has gone by so fast. Let's shift. We might have to do a second show about this because I am seeing it is already 10 minutes to the hour. So at least we covered the basics of crimping. Let me show you one thing I do. And I know that I show this probably most of the time when I am doing a design that is a strung design and it's a necklace or a bracelet. This is a product that I like to use for finishing. So we just looked at this beautiful wire, right? This is beautiful gold wire, nice gold tone wire. We also put together this really beautiful, like bright wire. It kind of all blends together very nicely. This is a perfectly acceptable way to finish a piece. You don't have to do anything else with it if you don't want to. This is nice quality wire. It's not going to be problematic for you. This should hold. I have made hundreds, if not thousands of pieces of jewelry with it looking just like this. I've never had a problem. Now, occasionally something will fail, something will cause a problem, but probably, 90% of the time you're not going to have an issue. So this is a perfectly acceptable way to end a design. I glommed on to an idea I saw probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe longer. A designer showed a technique on a YouTube video and I fell in love with it. And that was using French wire as a way to finish a piece of jewelry. And I should put this out too. There's also the beadsmith version. So there's Beadsmith makes some as well as Beadalon, and it is a little tiny coiled wire. And this is traditionally used to for knotted pearls. So if you knot pearls and you want to finish the ends, you're putting them on silk, you finish the ends with a little piece of wire like this, also referred to as bullion. And it will then cover up and protect your silk from, fraying and all of that at the ends. And it also creates a nice finishing for your knotted pearls. But what I saw in that video years back was somebody using this to cover up their beading wire. Now, like I said, this is perfectly acceptable way to finish off your bracelet, this side. Just looks nice and clean. If you've got a nice clean crimp, you're great. But you could, to add a little bit of something. So I like this just to create a little bit of continuity with my design. So if I'm using a silver wire, so in this case I've got gold, but this is what I like to do. So I like to give it a little bit of oomph and a little bit of continuity. So I've got my crimp tube, and then I've got a little piece of French wire, and I'm just randomly cut some so that I could show you. I didn't actually think about how long it was going to be. I just want to make sure it's long enough for you to see it. Now, you can put this on gold wire to make it a silver, a silver finishing. Or you can work with the bright or the silver, and it's just going to add a little oomph. So you can see the diameter of this wire is thinner than this French wire. So this is going to add a little bit of oomph to your piece. Now, French wire is going to want to creep down into your crimp tube. So if you're creating something with this, what you want to make sure is you don't let that French wire go into your crimp tube and into your bead. If your bead hole is big enough, it will go into that as well. So when you're doing this, you want to be aware of that wire and don't let it creep in. So I'm just going to create a loop here, which is something that I do sometimes. I'll create just a French wire loop on one end and my lobster on the other. So I took my wire, I put it down through my crimp, and you see that little piece of French wire sitting there. I'm down through that bead because I don't want to cut next to my bead. And then I'm just going to pull my wire till that French wire ends up coming flush with that crimp tube. So it's created a little matching metal loop at the end. So I'm pulling my wire off to the side, and then I'm grabbing my crimping pliers again. I'm just going to do the same thing. And because that French wire is sitting at the very base or the very top of my crimp tube, it's not going to go into my crimp tube. So I'm holding on, I've got my piece in the back notch. I'm going to give that a squeeze. And I've got my 2 pieces of wire separated. So you see, I've got that first half of the crimp. And then I'm going to twist that piece around and crimp it closed like that. Now, if you ever find that the second crimp looks a little less perfect, you can always come in with the very tip of these pliers and just ever so carefully, ever so gently give it a little squeeze. This is where you definitely don't want to use brute force. So sometimes that's what you can do to kind of clean it up. Now I'm going to pull this over. Now this is too small of a piece to do it the right way, but I'll show you that's what this will look like. Texas Tracy, if we had time, that was another thing I was going to show is a seed beaded loop, but that is going to have to go into part 2. So this is a nice, easy loop. Now you could literally you could use this for one end of your bracelet or necklace. This is very sturdy. It is very substantial. It's now added a little something so you can see how our wire looks different here. So this is the wire without the French wire on the left, and this is the wire with. So it actually gives it a little bit of oomph. Looks like a finding of some sort. So you could absolutely create a piece with a lobster claw on one side and a French wire loop on the other side. And look how lovely that is. Just all matches nicely together. Looks very polished, very finished. Whereas if you did this, hang on one second, the difference, and I know this is not exactly right, but if you just did a loop at one end, if you clipped onto that, it would look very different. Now you can also attach your lobster with French wire attached to it. So let's do that really quick. And that's probably, you guys, I really thought I was going to be able to do a lot more here today, but I think we achieved at least part of what I was hoping to do, and that's give you a little workshop on crimping. So, okay, let's do a quick look at how the wire is going to look with French wire and with the lobster. So I usually, when I'm doing French wire on both sides of my piece, you can either trim like by holding them and securing them in your finger, and you can trim them the same size, or you can cut a longer piece and fold it over and trim at the loop. That's another way to do it. But I'll show you how this will work. The French wire is sometimes a little persnickety, but you want to be careful not to pull it apart. The Beadsmith version is a little bit easier to pull apart, just as a point of reference. But what I'm doing here is showing you that you've got a 19 strand beading wire with the Beadalon 0.80 millimeter French wire, and then I've got my lobster claw loop on that, and it has great movement around there. So this is something that you can do as well. If you're going to do one end, where is it? If you're going to do one end of your design with the loop, I would match it up with the other end in the French wire and lobster, or whatever clasp that you're using. So you can use this to beef up and kind of streamline your wire. You can also use it to cover up. If all you have is one color of wire, maybe you ran out of all your other wire, you're waiting for your art beads package to get there, and you want to finish a piece and it's not silver wire. You can use a silver piece of French wire and cover up your wire. You would never know in this case what the color of the wire actually is, or the beading wire. So this is a perfectly acceptable way to finish off a piece. Now, I'm seeing some yeses for a part 2. So here's what I want to show you in part 2. I want to show you how you can do this in the complete package. So do a complete clasp. You can also put any other clasp that you want with it. So you can use a toggle. You just attach it the same way. So I'll show you this process as well. I'll also show you how to use a wire guard. I want to show you the comparison of a wire guard and just wire, a comparison of wire guard and French wire, because I think some folks really religiously use the wire guards. I also want to talk a little bit about crimp covers, because crimp covers are also a popular thing. And these are a really cool corrugated one that you can find in the shopping bag. These are really beautiful. They add a nice little finishing touch. I also want to show you how you can do this same process of attaching with French wire to chain. So if you're making a chain design, or maybe connecting a beaded piece to a chain piece, you can also use you can also do that attachment. There are different sizes. I find the size of French wire that is the best and most versatile is this one. This is going to fit over 49 strand beading wire, over 19 strand. It will work with 7 strand. So this is a good universal version. And I believe I've got both colors that are available at Art Beads in the shopping bag. So we'll look at all of that stuff. And I also want to talk a little bit next time about twisted crimps, which are also in the shop. So if you want to pick up some twisted crimps, we'll talk about those. And also another little finishing technique, using daisy spacers. So if you've watched me for any length of time, you may have seen me use daisy spacers. These are some of my most favorite things in my studio. This is a little finishing item that, not just from a spacer standpoint, but putting at the end of a piece to finish it off and make it look a little bit more polished and professional. So those are the things. Oh, and we'll do a seed beaded clasp too. That was going to be part of our workshop as well. So the time goes by so very fast, you guys. Let me flip up. I really, in my mind's eye, in my brain, thought we could do a lot more today. But I'm so glad we covered what we did cover. While I'm finishing up here, if you have things in your shopping cart, go ahead and get checked out, you guys, because some of these items are in limited stock. So make sure if you want to get started on some of these things, you'll want to get them checked out and on their way to you so you don't miss out. But you guys, this is the kind of thing, finishing is going to make a huge difference, especially if you sell your jewelry. Those finishing touches, once you get the crimp technique down, then it's all about how do we make the ends of our jewelry look just as pretty as the rest of our jewelry, so that when people pick up a piece, they say, oh, wow, this is so nicely made, so nicely finished. That's going to help you if you sell your jewelry, if you're gifting your jewelry, just some little things, tips and tricks that will help you out. So I'm seeing part 2 in our future. Look for a show scheduled in March. We'll do part 2, and we'll bring in some more pretty beads and things to work with. So thank you, Thaisa and Michelle, for your help today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Don't forget that the extended President's Day sale is on only through the end of today. You get those double points as well. And you guys, let's see. Wednesday, Julie will be back. Becky will be back on Thursday, and I'll have another show for you on Art Beats Fab Friday afternoon. So I'll see you again on Friday. Stay warm, stay safe, and go make something, you guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.